flow as this so, and please jump in if I'm wrong here, it's like
Yes.
an activity or something that is designed to get you from where you are to where you want to be, and there's a linear relationship between progress and degree of difficulty, so you feel that you are moving forward in some way. So there is a
Yes.
goal derivative associated with
Yes.
flow.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
and what does that look like from the artistic standpoint? So you bring these two groups together and
Yeah.
create something?
So
Mm,
the interesting thing is because of my affinity and love for art, I just felt like an artistic setting would facilitate flow more. But I did a study where I did an artistic piece of work versus just a normal activity. It was like a camping, what would you do if you were stranded activity. And there was no difference in flow. So what that told me was it really doesn't matter what the activity is, as long as the elements of flow are present, meaning same thing that you said, balance between difficulty and challenge and being able to focus and having a goal, as long as all of those are present and you get into the flow state, it doesn't matter what the activity is. Um, so that was really interesting, but also very exciting for me because in the scope of intergroup conflict, then it wouldn't matter what the activity is if you could just get these separate identities to focus on one thing that they both enjoy. That's a little challenging, but just get them to do it and just watch their identity switch. And
mm.
then all that matters is what's happening in that moment. Right.
And so describe, if you may,
Mhm.
the feeling of flow to people that don't necessarily have a framework for it, because I know
Yeah.
they would probably have accessed it, but they don't know what it is, right?
Yes. Yes. So it's when you're one of the examples I like to give is, imagine you're a writer and you just start writing and writing and the ideas are flowing and before you know it, you check your watch and 3 hours have gone by and you didn't even realize so much time had passed. You were in flow while you were writing, right? Some people get in flow when they're at the gym. Some people, when they're artistic, I would even argue binge watching on Netflix, right? You don't even realize hours and hours have gone and you're doing the same thing. So it's just almost a state of complete concentration that brings you away from the external world and very much focused in on what it is you're doing.
Right, right. And would you say there's a difference between flow as a sort of very conscious experience where you're aware that you're doing the thing, but you're also out of body as well. So it's almost like a just trying to flow through this myself here. It's like you're participating in the experience of being yourself, and that's fulfilling. Is it something like that?
Participating in being yourself. I think I would say yes. I believe there is an element of flow that could be associated with just merely existence.
Hmm.
Um, but the interesting thing, and I looked at this in my studies as well, is there's an element of loss of self consciousness. Right. So it's not necessarily self consciousness in the sense of being conscious of your surroundings, but you don't really care how you look. You don't really care what you're wearing. If your face looks funny, you're just like completely immersed in whatever is going on. Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Cool. So it's a loss of consciousness,
Yeah.
and it, but that's not being overly self conscious from like being very anxious or whatever it is. It's this beautiful
Exactly.
feeling of
Yes.
almost being connected to the oneness, right?
Yes, the oneness is such a perfect way of putting it, being so connected to the activity, whatever it is, that other things just don't matter, even if it's just for that moment,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
I love
Yeah.
that. I'm sure you felt that when you were doing the dissertation because we all know how long that takes.
I wish I could get in flow when I was
Oh,
writing my
really? Okay.
dissertation. It was very, I would say it wasn't as enjoyable, the writing part. So maybe
Mhm.
that's why I couldn't get into flow. But, it's again, flow is something that I think we get into every day at different periods of the day. So there's so many different spaces and places. I think I probably got into flow when I was just watching my participants interact with each other because it was just so fascinating to see them start out because we would give them a questionnaire and they would be on opposite ends of some kind of argument, right? So they'd come in heated, but then as we give them the activity and they start working through and they smile, all this stuff, it was just incredible to see them shift and walk out of the room feeling connected to each other. There's something
Mm.
really powerful that took place during that activity.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there's like you like almost creating peace, right, within that those two domains.
That was the title of the initial title of my thesis was going to be Creating Peace.
Oh, yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it is. So, okay, so let's dive in a little bit more now. So,
Yeah,
we've got two different groups. How are you choosing the groups? What are the differences? What are some of the conflicting points there?
yeah. So what we did was we gave them at the time I was doing it in England and there was a lot of drama around what do they call it? The exit,
Oh,
Brexit.
Brexit. Yes.
And there was, so many ideas of we should leave and we should stay. So I kind of gave questionnaires based on that.
Hmm.
And they would identify as leavers or people who want to stay. And it's so funny how just putting people who agree in a room and letting them know those guys in the other room disagree, just how they immediately start having these negative feelings towards
Mm.
the other group. It doesn't take much. And there are lots of studies that show that too, that just putting groups in a different color t-shirt is enough to get them upset, right? Um, so that was the criteria that we used. And then we would bring them in the room together. One group did an artistic piece of work, the other group did just a random something they'd have to collaborate with. And we would then give them a survey at the end and just see kind of how they were feeling. So my study, we did it was both quant and qual. I
Mhm.
interviewed them after, and it was just amazing the themes that we got from that of peace and unity and collaborative identity. Just I think the most powerful point in it for me, which is why I advocate about identity studies so much, is your identity can change it's so easy.
Yeah.
It's so easy. And the sad part about these intergroup conflicts is we take on this identity, but it's so fleeting because in a couple of days that identity won't matter.
Yeah.
So being able to bring flow into a setting where people are hot and just get them to focus on something else, I feel like could be so helpful.